Welcome back to the balanced diet of teletainment. I really should take up rapping. But we don't the jealous, so she no go agree. Anyway, it's the 1st of May. It's the 1st of May, Workers' Day, and we don't talk about before, so we get a lineup of guests. And most of the things we will go talk now, work-related issues. The very first guest we get in the house is a very, very familiar face. Anytime we should drop by, that's my name, you're seeing again. Anytime we should drop by, I'm proud of my name, don't worry.
Why are you so vain?
Anytime we should enter the house, we always be very, very elated and excited because she and somebody will be part of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we go like, join us as we welcome a seasoned HR personnel, human resource personnel. She's done in the industry for many years. If not a musician, by now done the drop album. Mrs. Bunmi Oni in the house with us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you in the house.
Morning. And happy Workers' Day to you, man.
I wish you same.
As a human resource personnel, and you and a person with all the inside the industry for a very long time, today we'll talk about adequate compensation for workers. And we know say we get the Workers' Compensation Act for inside Obodo, Nigeria, where they actually cater for the compensation of workers who don't get disabled or sick during their course of work. Do you feel that this law waiting on ground really they favor Nigerian workers?
Thank you for asking me that question. Basically, under the Employee Compensation Act, before now, what we had was workmen compensation.
Yes.
And then workmen compensation cascaded down into types of disability, fatality, to cater for the workman himself, and then to cater for the dependents of the workman if the workman is
not alive.
Not alive. But in 2009, we now had the repeal of the Workmen Compensation Act, and then we now had Employee Compensation Act, which of course caters for the workman in the course of work and also the dependents of the workman when the workman is no longer alive. So in Nigeria, you can't just do things because, okay, yes, the workman is no longer alive, and then I just want to give them maybe 100,000, 500,000, depending on the job level of the workman. So the law, the Employee Compensation Act, has now captured how such things can be calculated, and then the dependence of the workman, even if the workman is, suffers a form of disability or anything, or even the dependence of the workman in case of death, can adequately be catered for. So we have a law binding that. And then if we now bring it down to the company policy, for the company policy, you would have things like, policies and procedure that, are centered around things like that. For instance, I'll go back to how how workers are being compensated in Nigeria. Basically, it should be divided into compensation and benefit. Okay. Not just, I'm paying you a gross salary of XYZ amount. If I'm paying you XYZ amount and then something happens to the workman in the course of work arising from that job, how am I going to be compensated? How will my family be compensated? How will my dependents be compensated? So basically what I think we should do in Nigeria is properly define it in a way that you know that this is my compensation, which is like, for example, maybe 200,000, and then my benefits would now be my health insurance, my pension, my modified work week, things that you can actually use to motivate your employee, to motivate your worker, such that 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, people will still want to work for such companies and then see and project themselves as future, pioneers or future beneficiaries of that company.
Okay. I want to quickly, quickly ask. Now, when you say dependents, do we have a? Should I get one? Let me use it in English. Do we have a particular number of people that is standard, or is it according to organization? For example, when you say dependents, there are some companies that will say, okay, if na man they work, the dependents we will cater for now, wife and maximum of 3 children or 4 children. But we know that Africa, we are a very, very...
we believe in large families.
Exactly. Extended family size. Maybe say the man dependent reach in mama, in papa, in wife, mother, the wife, father, and the 3 children, in brother, way there, they train the children too. So is there a scope, a limited scope? Is there a boundary? Is there that is a standard boundary for workers' dependents generally, or is it according to each organization?
There's a standard. You know, you can't work for a company, and then I'll cascade it down to performance. You know, at the point that you're hiring someone, and then you break it down, like I said earlier, or like I suggested, compensation has to be divided from your benefit, so that you're not paying me a gross amount, and then my benefit is also calculated with that gross amount. Let's separate it from the beginning, so that I know that these are my benefits. This is the compensation that comes to me after every month. Now, at the point that the person is being hired, or the person has been in your system, it will cater for the workman. It will also cater for, I'm trying to clarify now, it will also cater for dependents of the workman. For instance, it will cater for if it's a man, the wife, and then up to 4 children. Up to 4 children, you know, under the law, and also under policies and procedure of that particular company, and not necessarily because you have people in the village, or you have.
So if you never marry, girlfriend, not join this one. So my benefit, not reach my girlfriend.
But if, for instance, I mean, part of your supporting document or your relevant documentation for that employment says that, okay, you can bring your girlfriend or somebody you intend to get married to in the future, and it caters or something like that.
Benefit list.
Okay, so when you start this whole thing, the question we asked, I mean, they talk about the Employee Compensation Act and a company policy.
Yes.
Now, in situations where we say company policy, where we say company get no favor the employer, the act, the General Employee Act, is there a way that also can help, you know, marry the differences between what I'm sorry, I have to speak the English so that you understand what I'm saying.
I know, is there a way policy and even the law with
to cover it? Is there a way that, you know, the employee policy can manage the differences or the excesses that the company is giving to the benefit of the employer?
If I understand the question, Employee Compensation Act is federal.
Federal, yes.
It's. I mean, we're in Nigeria. The company is in Nigeria, so it covers.
Yes.
Now the company policy also is being suited, because I don't want to mention names. You know, like the insurance scheme now. There is a federal insurance scheme that caters for things like that. So you can't isolate your company away from the law of the land. The Employee Compensation Act covers you as a company practicing in Nigeria. So you can't say my company policy is different from the Employee Compensation Act, or it doesn't cater for a set of my...
Let's buttress more on Chibuike's point, because we talk about the state of Nigerian workers now, and see how to better Nigerian workers. I know of a person where she work for a very good company now, and her child is sick. Her child actually needs help as regards to heart surgery. So where does this Compensation Act come in to help an employee?
Well, that would be boiled down to the company and not necessarily under the Employee Compensation Act. Because if you look at the act, really, it's actually for the workman.
Oh, okay. Not really is dependent.
And dependent of the workman after the workman probably
dead,
suffers a fatality or something happens in the course of work arising from that job. So, yes, there should be a sort of benefit that would cover the dependent of that situation you're talking about. But you also know that in Nigeria, you know, there are ways in which we polish this thing, which, you know, it's not necessarily spelled out A, B, C. But like you rightly said, if there is a provision for health insurance for that company, for that particular workman, it should to a larger extent cover
it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, ma. Well, unfortunately, time will not
No,
allow
let's
us
quickly
to
just
go
ask this
further.
question. We just have like 1 more minute. Let me just ask, you feel, say, employers of labor in Nigeria, they actually do well to better the skills of their employee? Because we see a lot of employer of labor leaving trainings to their employee to take cater for it, rather than even going through to make sure that the employees are being trained.
That also has to do with the company policy. I know that in human resources, it's broken down into key result areas where you have learning and development. In fact, it's both ways. I want to develop myself, I want to develop in my career. I want to progress. I want to grow with that company. The company on the other side would also make efforts to say that I'm sending XYZ people for training.
But some companies that are very selfish. They'll be like, if I train this person now, if he come up my company, go and do another one. I know Bernard has a very interesting question.
Well, very quickly, before we came on air, we were discussing, behind the scene, and Mr. Producer has given us 1 extra minute to throw this one in.
Okay.
The standard working hours, in Nigeria, what are the standard total number of hours that we should have working hours per week?
40.
40. So if we break that down,
hours.
that's 8
hours. That's 8 hours
per day, 5 days a week. Now, in a situation where the worker works more than that, what is expected?
You'd agree with me that some exigencies of some particular job roles would require you doing more than 40 hours. Yeah. So if you do more than 40 hours, it also boils down to the company policy.
So you cannot sue your company for keeping you for more than 40 hours and yet
not
not paying you, paying you. You can't
like
sue them. Can you?
It boils down to the company policy.
I'll
be very diplomatic about that. But you can't sue your company. Like I said, it all boils down to performance and then career development. If I want to develop my career and I'm looking at growing with that company, I mean, it's more than the hours, really. If a stipulated number of hours has been put down to say, okay, these are the number of hours that you have to work for. But I know that the exigencies of my job role demands that, I mean, I do more. I mean, why not do more?
And gain the experience.
Thank you so much. Very nice time with you, Ms. Bunmi Oni, Human Resource Personnel Extraordinaire. Good to have you in the house. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. I will need to grab this small break. When we come back, another lovely gangsters guest, wonderful customer, like I like to call them, will also join us on this beautiful couch. Don't go anywhere. The Good Morning Nigeria show still continues, and it is Workers' Day special. Don't go anywhere.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love her.